2017 point-in-time count training to include training on the mobile app presented by Becky O'Mara and Maddie Zingraf at the Planning Council. Today, just to go through some quick agenda items, we will be going over a point-in-time count overview as well as a few important notes before heading out to count. We're going to go through how to download and register if you haven't already for the mobile app, and how to create and submit any new surveys or drafts. And then we're going to go through some just important reminder notes regarding the use of the app and some great resources for you to take and digest before we do the actual count. So Maddie's going to start with the point-in-time count overview.
This is Maddie at the Planning Council, and thank you all in advance for participating. I'm just going to provide a brief overview of the point-in-time count, which is an unduplicated count of persons experiencing homelessness, both sheltered and unsheltered. It takes place once a year and provides a snapshot of the size of and what our homeless population looks like. While these numbers are submitted to HUD and are used when requesting funding, we acknowledge that our population is probably much larger and is very difficult to assess in just a 24-hour period. Please note that homelessness is defined as persons sleeping in emergency shelters or transitional housing and other places not meant for human habitation, such as cars, streets, parks, etc. During the point-in-time count, we also capture some subpopulation data, which helps us apply for grants and funding specific to those needs within those subpopulations. So some examples of these are chronic homelessness, which we will talk about that a little bit more later. Those with disabling conditions, such as mental health, substance dependence, physical and medical issues, veterans, persons who self-report as having HIV or AIDS, persons who have experienced domestic violence, families, and also youth households. The 24-hour period this year starts on the night of Tuesday, January 24th, where shelters and transitional housing providers will survey individuals and households in their programs. If the program enters data into the Homelessness Management Information System, also known as HMIS, they will not need to do any additional surveying. The count will continue into the early morning of Wednesday, January 25th, where teams of volunteers will count persons at day centers, in their cars at parking lots, soup kitchens, Norfolk Project Homeless Connect, and other known areas using the mobile app. If you are not yet on a team and would like to participate, please feel free to contact me via phone or email, which will be available at the end of this PowerPoint. Just a few notes before you participate in the count. If you are volunteering to take part in the unsheltered count, you will not be asked to go anywhere alone. There will be at least 2 to 3 people on a team, if not more, and a captain will be identified who we will make sure feels comfortable leading a team and using the app. I would also like to take this time to remind you to hydrate, dress in layers, and be safe. We go into this in a little bit more detail in some outreach instructions and some safety tips that will be going out to you via email. A couple other things when you're actually doing the survey is read through the questions a few times before you begin. Make sure you take your time when marking responses, and make sure that you ask all the questions on the survey. But please note that the interviewee does have the right to refuse any questions, and refusing to answer will not prohibit them from receiving services. Before heading out, as I said, please review the outreach instructions and the volunteer fact sheet documents, which will be sent out via email. And if you have any questions about those documents, you're welcome to give me a call.
Thanks, Maddie. Moving into the Counting Us mobile app, just some background about the app. It was developed by Simtech Solutions Incorporated. They are a data and reporting solutions tech company based in Boston. They have served and continue to serve as technical advisors to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. And they really like to emphasize that the app is called Counting Us, just to emphasize our shared humanity and to recognize it's not an us versus them situation, but we are all counting together. We wanted to make sure we emphasize that there is very strong data security provided by Simtech, that no data is permanently stored on your phone or mobile device once the survey has been submitted. They take that very seriously, as do we. The app is available for download through Google Play or the App Store if you're using an iPhone or iPad or other Apple device. You can also access Counting Us online at counting.us. And if you do that, just make sure you know that it is optimized for touchscreen because it was originally supposed to be used as an app. So there's no scroll bar. You have to pretend your mouse is your finger and just drag it and drag around to access all of the questions on the survey. We did not mention that in training last year and wanted to make sure we did this year, as it caused a few of you some issues, and we apologize for that. So first steps we're going to go through include how to access the app. And again, you can get it through Google Play or the Apple App Store. If you already downloaded the app last year and happen to still have your same mobile device, you can go to your app manager and check for updates. They should be automatic, but if you happen to have disabled auto update at some point, just make sure you have the most recent version up to date. And if you have not downloaded, I'm actually going to take you step by step through that next. If you did have an account last year, you should be able to use your same username, which was probably your email address, and you'll likely have to change your password. You can try to use your same password, but we'll probably tell you it doesn't recognize it at first. And so you can just click Forgot Password at the bottom of the screen and then follow those instructions, and I can show you what that looks like. But first, how to download. So here's a screenshot of Google Play. I have Android, and if you have an Apple device and you need help, let me know, but it should look pretty similarly. So you're just going to come up to your search bar and actually type in Counting Us, and you can see here that it shows up in the menu of options. And once you click on that, you just click on this install button here, and it will give you a notification that it needs to access your location. And this is important because we use this to determine that the surveys were completed within the right jurisdictions. Since we are administering this count regionally, we do separate out between the two continuums. However, between those two continuums, we also divide out between each city and county and provide them a specific count as well. And also just for the safety of our team, so we can kind of see where you all are at on the day of the count and make sure we can get in touch with you if need be. So you would choose Accept, and then it should tell you that it is installing. And then it will give you the choice to either uninstall or open, and you would just click Open. And then it should open the app, and this is what you see. If you're going to do any test surveys, if you're just trying it out, please do use the demo region. And then when it's time to submit the real surveys during the count, you do need to change count and choose the correct COC. And I will shift over now to Counting Us and show you what that looks like. So here we are at the web version of the app. And if you haven't yet registered for an account, you would click Register and complete your information here, first and last name and email address, and that will become your login. And then we do ask for your cell phone number. And the reason we ask for your cell phone number is because this is intended to be used on the day of the count while you're out doing surveys. If we're looking at some data quality as we're seeing the surveys come in real time on our side, which is a really neat feature of the app. And it looks like you're skipping questions consistently, or we just had a question about one of the surveys you submitted. This allows us to reach out to you while you're still in the field, and maybe with that person that you had just submitted the survey for, and you can go back and make some updates to some questions that may have been missed or something like that. We're not going to use this information after the day of the count or after the data cleaning process is complete to spam you or telemarket you or anything like that. So if you could please use the cell phone number that you'll be out using during the day of the count, that would help us out. And then you create a password that you can remember, confirm the password, and then submit your registration. Since I've already registered, I'm going to go ahead and sign in. And I've entered my username and password. But if I had forgotten my password, I would just click down here where it says Forgot Password, and you can enter the email address you used previously and hit Submit, and then you'll be sent an email with instructions that are pretty easy to follow to reset your password. So I'm going to go ahead and log in. And this is where I was mentioning about choosing your count. So we have this large button down here, and it gives us a list of counts. So if you're counting for the GVPHC on the peninsula, you would choose this first option here. If you're counting for the SVHC on the south side, you would choose the second option. The demo region is the one I had indicated was available for some testing. So we'll go ahead and choose that one. And you can see that it does confirm with you that you're accounting for the demo region. So you just click OK. If you click on the wrong one by any chance and you need to change it, just click Change Count and then go and change the count there. And it will confirm for you again the correct count. I'm going to get us back to the demo region here. And the next step is to click Get Started. The survey options are listed here. So we have the unsheltered survey in green for both individuals and households. We have the observation tally for individuals and households. And we'll make a note of this later, but I wanted to mention now the observation surveys are only to be used for the unsheltered count this year. If you are counting in a shelter and you aren't able to engage with someone, please just go ahead and fill out this last option here, the sheltered survey, and skip any questions that you can't get answers to. That will help us when we are doing the data processing part after the count to make sure we're counting people in the right categories. So I'll take you through an individual unsheltered survey, and this is where that location enabling comes in handy. You can see it finds exactly where you are, hopefully with some degree of accuracy, but if it doesn't, you can drag around, you can zoom out, you can zoom in if you need to get closer, and hopefully it can approximate where you are. If it just doesn't look quite right or you would rather do an address, you can click address and enter an address here. And again, we'll note this later, but this is where we're asking our domestic violence providers to enter a street address in the same city or county that you're located in, but not where your shelter actually is, to keep that location secure and safe. So if you have a shelter in James City County, you would want to make sure you choose an address in James City County. If you have one in Franklin, then you would want to make sure you chose an address somewhere in Franklin. Once you have gotten your location correct, you can hit Next Step, and this brings you into the survey itself. The first question of the unsheltered survey is, where is your sleeping location on the night of the count? And for both SVHC and GVPHC, that night is January 24th on Tuesday. So if you're out early in the morning on January 25th, you'll ask, where did you sleep last night? You click Select Answer or tap if you're using your finger on the smartphone or other mobile device, and then you have the usual options as answers to this question, many of them those that Maddie just described in her overview. You would choose one and then enter their first and last name. If they're hesitant to give you their first and last name, try to get their initials. We use this for making sure that we don't count people twice, so we can compare their names and their birth dates as identification points just to ensure we don't count them more than once. So we do also ask for their date of birth. And I will mention that a lot of you ran into some issues last year with the scrolling of the years, and that was just a functionality of how they had to use the widget that they use with the app. But what they've done here is defaulted to 1999, which is the year where people for this year would become 18, so they would be an adult. So you know, if you're choosing or you're surveying a child, you would scroll down, and if you're surveying an adult, you would scroll up. And it is a pretty quick scroll, and it goes just as fast with your finger as well as I'm doing it with my mouse here. So you would scroll to the appropriate month, day, and then year and click Done. If they're hesitant to give you their exact date of birth, try to ask how old they are, and you can just enter that there, just type it in. If they're still hesitant to even tell you that much, try to guess their age range, and we have a number of options here: under 5, 5 to 12, 13 to 17, 18 to 24, and so on and so forth, up to our older adults of 62 and over. They next ask how they identify their gender, and there's a new option this year that they can choose to do not identify as male, female, or transgender. They also ask for their ethnicity. Do they identify as Hispanic or Latino? Choose the appropriate option. And then we go into their race, and they can select one or more race categories. You can see here, I can choose multiple races, and that helps them get counted in that correct category. If they do choose other race, please go ahead and type in whatever the other race is that they identify. The next section goes into the homeless history questions, and this helps assess if they count as a chronic homeless person or individual or household. So we ask if this is the first time they've been homeless, and choose the correct response here. If this is their first time homeless, or if it's not their first time homeless, we still ask how long they've been homeless this time, and that includes time spent staying in the shelters or on the streets. So you have these push buttons here next to each line for year, months, weeks, and days, and if you hold it down, it will proceed for you. If they don't know or refuse, you can choose this option here. So including this time that they're homeless right in front of you right now, how many separate times have they stayed in shelters or on the streets in the past 3 years? And you would choose either fewer than 4 times, 4 more times, or they don't know or refuse. And this is important for the HUD definition of chronic homelessness. We also look at, in total, in all of those times, how long did they stay in shelters or on the streets? And there's an option here for you to choose how many years, months, weeks, and days, again, with don't know or refuse. This is a new question asking how long they've been living in this community. And we're loosely defining community this year as your continuum of care. So if you have questions about which jurisdictions apply to that, you can contact anyone here, Maddie or myself, and we can help you out with that. But basically, SVHC is Chesapeake, Suffolk, Norfolk, and Western Tidewater, and GVPHC is James City County, Williamsburg, York, Poquoson, Hampton, Newport News. Did I get that right? Okay. The next section gets into the adults-only questions. So if you are interviewing a household and there are children, then you could skip this section for them. But it goes into their veteran status, if they've ever served in the U.S. Armed Forces, or if they were ever called into active duty as a member of the National Guard or reservists, you would select yes. Then we get into the subpopulations that Maddie had described earlier. If they have any substance abuse issues, choose the appropriate response. This is really important to ask the second follow-up question if they say yes. You also need to ask if this is a long-term disability that impairs your ability to hold a job or live independently. And if they say yes, go ahead and check that. Without that second question asked and checked yes, it's hard for us to count the individual as is being in that subpopulation category according to how HUD defines these. So we also ask about chronic health conditions, mental health issues, physical disabilities, developmental disabilities, and then finally their AIDS or HIV status, and also if they're a victim of domestic violence. At the bottom, there's a place where you can type in any notes that you may have. This is where, if this was a sheltered observation, even though we're doing the unsheltered survey, you could put refuse to engage here, just any kind of notes that may help you. So at the end, we have either the option to submit the survey or to save it as a draft, and that's what I'm going to do right now. And that brings us back out to the survey menu, and you'll see this red number 1 right here, and that tells you you have a draft in your draft folder. If you click on that, you can choose the survey and either open the draft to make any edits or updates, or you can remove the draft if it's someone who should not actually be counted in the count. If you open the draft, you can make any changes that you need to any of the questions, or just come down here and submit the survey. And you will get a survey ID, and it will tell you that it's been successfully submitted. And that means that we will see it in real time on our end at the data store, pop in with a little pinpoint on the map, and we'll also see the responses to the questions that you were able to ask. So you can come back out to surveys and choose either an observation tally if you're doing an unsheltered, and it asks you to approximate the age, the gender, race, ethnicity, and then any other identifying characteristics that you can think of. They have some great examples here. Clothing that stands out to you, or if they have a tattoo or something like that, that can help us either send this information to outreach workers to maybe try to locate them after the count, or also just to make sure that we're not counting the same person twice. And then you would either submit the survey or save the draft. We also have the sheltered survey. And again, it should pinpoint where you are and your shelter. And this sheltered survey should be completed for any non-HMIS participating emergency shelter or transitional housing programs only. So this year, what they've done for us is given us the option to select an organization, which I can't do because I'm in the demo region. So let me actually get out of here just for a second and show you what it looks like within one of our counts. We'll look at a peninsula program. So you get to see how easy it is to change counts there. So what you do is select an organization, and you see you have a whole list here of both Southside and Peninsula organizations. So just choose the one that you're counting with, and we'll just pick Peninsula Rescue Mission. And then you can see the projects that are associated with that agency, and they have the emergency shelter there. If we were to choose Union Mission on the south side, we can see they have a variety of programs that they are going to be submitting surveys for this year. Once you are in the correct count and you don't see an organization or a project that you would expect to see, please contact me and let me know so that I can get that list updated. Briefly, I'll mention as well, we have the opportunity to count households. And when you click on the household option, you just enter the number of how many people are together in that household. And this is a very loosely defined, for the HUD report, we have to count families with children as someone who's either over 18 and under 18. But if people identify as a household, we will just count them together. And the reports will be able to indicate how old each person is and count them in the appropriate group. So if you had a 2-person household in front of you, you would enter 2 and click OK, and it would bring you again to location. And then you'll see at the top here, it gives you a household ID as well as you're a member of the household 1 of 2. So you have to answer each question for each member of the household. And down at the bottom, it will let you submit the survey or save the draft, and then it will bring you to member 2 of 2 of that household. If it was a 4-person household, you would proceed until you get through all 4 persons of the household. And that lumps these surveys together under that household ID and allows us to count them together as one record. And you can see here it is in my drafts folder as well. I'm going to remove this draft so I don't have any extraneous surveys in the Peninsula count. Yes, I want to remove this draft. And one last thing I'll mention for this part of the presentation is up here in the right-hand corner, they've added an option for you to quickly access your account information if you need to make any updates, or you can also sign out, which is what I'm going to do right now. And I'm going to back over.
One thing I would like to note is if you're going to save your surveys as a draft, and because you have notes to add, please do those notes right away. Do not save your draft and then think that you'll be able to go back to it later. You can do that, however, after surveying multiple people, it can become very difficult to remember which note belongs to which survey.
Yes, thanks for that, Maddie. I have forgotten to mention that. Please do, if you're out somewhere in the woods and you don't have internet connection or no Wi-Fi or mobile data and you need to save all of the survey drafts, make sure you double check and see if you have any red numbered indicators that you have surveys still that need to be submitted so we can make sure that those individuals and households get counted. Okay, so just a few more important notes to wrap up. As we already stated, domestic violence providers, please don't enter your actual shelter address for your location. Use any other address within your jurisdiction. And also, please, just domestic violence providers only, don't enter any client names. You should just leave those fields blank. Again, we want to emphasize the chronic homeless definition that changed last year. And when you're asking how many times they've been homeless, I know it's really hard when you're out doing the count like this, but we need to try to get to the best data that we can for HUD. So each of those episodes of homelessness is supposed to be interrupted by at least 7 days of not being homeless in order for it to be a new episode. And I know that can be confusing, so if you have questions about that, please feel free to reach out to us and we can try to help you sort through that. Just a few more notes. Where did you sleep the night of the count? Again, for both SVHC and GVPHC, that will be January 24th. All of our HMIS participating shelters and transitional housing programs won't be doing actual extra surveys of those persons in their programs. So if you're out surveying people at the library, for instance, and you say, have you already been counted, which is a great place to start, just to avoid counting people twice in general, and they say, no, I stayed at Nest, for example, but no one surveyed me. Or maybe that's a bad example because I think we're sending a team there. But if they stayed at, let me think, if they stayed at Menchville House on the peninsula, they wouldn't have been asked a special point in time count survey because we already collect all the data required for this through HMIS. So rest assured, if they're at one of the shelters, they will have been counted. We're also sending special teams to most of the shelters that don't participate in HMIS, so they would have been covered most likely during the point in time count. Also, again, just to reiterate, the observation tally is only for the unsheltered count. In the past, we have allowed the observations to be used for anyone in shelter who wouldn't engage or were sleeping or you couldn't get answers. But that is different this year. We can only use observation surveys for the unsheltered counts. There's no way in the app to differentiate between the two, so we're only using it for the unsheltered count this year. If you are counting in a shelter and someone won't engage, just go ahead and complete the sheltered survey and skip any questions that you can't get answers to. And if you want to go ahead and make a note at the bottom that that was the case, that would help us not just keep calling you for data quality issues if you tried and just couldn't get answers to the questions. A few resources include the pointintime.info page that is produced and published by Simtech Solutions. It has links to the HUD resources as well on the HUD exchange there, and they also have a great getting started with the mobile app. If you still have questions, of course, feel free to reach out to me, but that's also a good resource for you. There's also a Spanish version of the survey on there. If you happen to be out in the field and encounter someone who would prefer to engage in Spanish, you can try to use that survey. It's available for download. Also, the counting.us site is there if you're going to be accessing this online through a web browser. I will note that if you're using Internet Explorer, it likely will not work for you since that is an older browser that's being phased out. It does need to be one of the newer browsers like Chrome or Firefox. And also, if you're interested in the types of data and results that we've gotten in past years, you can see last year's point-in-time count results on the homeless data pages on both gvphc.org and shrhomeless.org. And there's also an archive of homeless data for past years if you'd like to see even more information. Finally, if you have any questions about using Counting Us, or if you're on the South Side and you need technical assistance during the day of the count, you can reach me at romera@theplanningcouncil.org or at 622-9268, and my extension is 3040. I will be, I don't know why that went away, sorry about that. I will be in the office that day, ready and able to take your calls. Also, if you're counting on the peninsula, the day of the count, you can reach out to Josh Cohen for any technical assistance, and that's his work cell phone number, 757-287-6589. If you need general point in time count information, or you would like to be assigned to a team, you can contact Maddie Zingraf, and that's her email there. And also, she has the same phone number, except her extension is 3003. And we'd just like to say again, thank you so much for volunteering and for your time. And we hope everyone has a safe and productive 2017 point in time count. Maddie, did you have anything to add?
No, sounds great.
All right. Thank you very much.